I felt like, oh, my drum was just struck and the reverberations went out. I was like, oh, my name means calm. We all have within us a sense of knowing that will either draw us towards something or we can sense being pushed away from something. If I have a perspective of humility and respect, that I am actively seeking guidance and support, then as a clean and clear vessel, their presence can come through. I've had some very pivotal times where I was so supported that my hands were doing things that I had never been taught.
It feels like your father had a foresight. He knew that this was part of your path.
The hula is nature's movement. That's really where everything started, where my appreciation for nature, finding a way to move as nature began. That is truly what allowed me to just open my voice. Kumu Mālia Hēlela I am cleansed by the power of the sea. No ke kai o kalapana haileo nui.
Aloha and welcome to the Illuminating the Way podcast, where we share stories by teachers and masters that have embodied a light so deeply and are rippling that out into the world. These stories will inspire you through inspiration and expand your consciousness, reflection, and transformation. I'm Jade Chan, and my co-host Deshane and I are so grateful and also seek to share these beautiful wisdoms with the younger generation so that these stories and these wisdoms can be embodied and carried forward. Today, we are so blessed to be with Kumu Malia to explore the traditions of hula, of Lomi, and of Oli Hawaiian chanting. We are also going to hear stories on her deep connection with nature and what she has learned through her greatest teachers and kumus. Kumu Malia is a traditionally trained Kumu Hula, a Lomi practitioner and cultural consultant in Honolulu, Hawaii. She became a Kumu Hula at a young age of just 24 years old, and this year will have served as a Kumu Hula for over half of her lifetime. That is so incredible. She began training in Lomi at a very young age as a teenager, and soon will nurture her own Lomi apprentices. One of the things that I most admire about Kumu Malia is how she strives to live a life of grace and how she always acts in every moment with grace and love as best as she can. Thank you. I also admire how much joy and laughter she brings to every class. Literally, every grown woman turns into a little girl dancing with joy in her class, including myself. The way that she dances and sings, you can tell just how much reverence she has for nature, for the Hawaiian culture, and for life itself. She leads a halau, which is a school of hula, where she teaches hula, chant, Oli, and Hawaiian tradition to students of all ages, from keiki to kapuna. Kumu Malia's approach to practice reflects her belief that everything is interconnected as one, that Lomi and hula are one in harmony, in healing. Aloha, Kumu Malia!
Aloha!
Thank you, and mahalo and nui loa for being here today.
Thank you for joining me here. This is my hometown of Kailua. And in Hawaii, we describe where we're from as our one hanau, our birth sands. And so Kailua, this is the place of my birth sands, and welcome.
We're so glad to be in your home and on your birth sense. I am just so grateful to be here today because you are someone that we greatly admire and appreciate with so much heart and love. We also see how much wisdom you have and that you have passed on gracefully, and we want to strive to help share that light. We would love to start with an Oli.
Absolutely. One of my favorite Oli is Oli Lei. It is a prayer that's usually chanted when a lei is given. And it describes the ocean as a lei that surrounds the islands. So in this case, lei is used as a verb. And if we look out, today is very calm, but there are the little white foam where the waves are breaking. And that could be seen as this beautiful white feather lei surrounding the islands. And there is reference to the pa Malia, the gentle blowing of the wind. And here in Kailua, our wind is called Malanai. And I love this prayer for its calm, its peace, and its enveloping nature, like a lei of ocean that surrounds the islands. And so we'll just take a breath in, hanumai, hanuaku, exhale. Hele maila o kaula I ke kai. Ke malama o nihao wa mali. Amalie pa ka inu vaila. Ke inu maila. Nahala o na we I ke kai. No na we kahala. No puna kawahine. No kalua. No ikila we. I means indeed. And I'm gesturing this way because the chant is set in Kauai and acknowledging the Big Island, which on a clear day we can actually see Maui and Molokai in the distance beyond the Mokulu Island.
That was so beautiful.
Thank you.
And filled with just pure essence. Mahalo nui for that beautiful Oli. We would love to start and reflect on your journey. How did this path of hula and Lomi reveal itself to you? And how did you know that it was your purpose?
Oh, well, it all began here. So I was born at Queen's Hospital in town, but my family lived in Kailua. And so this is where I grew up. And even though my family moved to Micronesia, to the island of Yap, when I was 3, my earliest memories are actually there. I lived in Yap from 3 to 8 years old. So even though we moved away for a short time, when we came back to Hawaii, it was here to Kailua. And my father is the one who sought out Lake Kumu. And he wanted a kumu that had tradition, that had a lineage, that was going to share with me just grounded tradition. And so he found Auntie Puluʻelo Naipo Park here in Kailua. And I started taking hula twice a week. I would walk from Kainalu Elementary School right down here, and I'd walk to hula. And that's really where everything started, where my appreciation for nature, for finding a way to move as nature began. And in terms of Lomi, my mother always massaged me. So I formally started training at 16, but my mother actually massaged me from when I was a little kid. And I remember it was in Micronesia, so I was somewhere between 3 and 5 or 3 and 8. I remember circling my mom's knuckles and feeling so proud that I had made this massage move. Like, I did that. And I'm like, Mom, aren't you proud of me? I made this up. And so I was little. And moving forward to growing up here in Kailua, my dad would take us to the bookstore often. And there was a bookstore called Tusitala Books. And on my way to the Nancy Drew books, I would pass the health and spirituality section. And there was a book. It was hard bound and it was in a red cover. And it was propped open to these beautiful black and white images of infant baby massage in India.
Ah,
And so somehow, even I must have been maybe 12, 11, 12, because I was still reading Nancy Drew. I chose that book for the day. And I'm like, I want this book, Dad. And that was my first massage book. And it was infant baby massage with prose, poetic, just passages to illustrate that. And so I don't know how or where that came from, but I've just always known that I would be doing massage. The hula was a lot harder because I hated it. For many, many years, I struggled with hula. But once that started to come into my body a little bit better, that's when I was starting to study massage more formally. And from the beginning, I've always been struck by how similar the two are. So it's unfolding.
it is still unfolding, just like a flower. That is so beautiful. I love that your journey of hula started from here, near these sands, and that Lomi started from massaging your mom at such a young age, and just somehow feeling a affinity with that. That is so beautiful. Thank you. Can you share a little bit about the kumu and the teachers that have shaped you and what they entrusted or transmitted to you?
Thank you. So I mentioned my hula kumu, Auntie Puluʻelo Naipo Park. She was always larger than life to me. She was somebody with great dignity. She's a very tall woman, very stately, and commanded respect and commanded attention. And yet she was really fun. She would giggle like a little girl. She would play her ukulele in the airport and have us dance. Dance for me. And so she really taught me how to be grounded and light at the same time. I was with her when I was 8 years old, and I hated hula when I was 9. I hated it when I was 10, 11, 12, maybe even 13, 14 years old. I just hated it. And I don't recall her ever shaming me. She would always say, "It's okay, Malia, go sit on the steps. Just sit and watch." And that invitation to sit and watch was always available to me. And over time, as I became more, once I softened into hula, and the girls who used to kind of tease and torment me, once they quit, then I began to love hula and the relationship that I had with Auntie Pulu. It was actually her invitation for me to participate as her Miss Aloha soloist that brought forward a need to chant. I did not have the ability to chant. Even with my best friend in the forest, with nobody around, I couldn't chant. And so I sought the permission and received the blessing from my kumu to study under Kumu John Keola Lake. He was a Kumu Hula, but I enrolled in his Oli classes, and that's really what allowed my voice to come forward. And a lot of the chanting exercises that I teach my students, I learned from him. Those two shaped me in hula.
Wow. I think one thing I really appreciate about your story is the discipline and reverence. Even though in the beginning you hated hula, you had that discipline to continue. And then with your kumu giving you that love, that environment, once those people left, then you really stepped into your power and harmony with it.
Well, I also had my father, who interestingly, he's not Hawaiian. My mother is part Hawaiian. But it was my father who found my kumu, and he's the one that helped me navigate. He'd say, "Well, why don't we just give it another month? How about just to the end of the year? But you're about to do this thing. How about we just give it a little bit more time? Let's just reach here." And bit by bit, he just really helped me navigate to the point where I was asked to become a Kumu Hula. And I was not seeking that at all. It's something I maybe imagined for myself when I was the age I am now in my 40s. But when that was offered to me, he's actually the one I turned to. And he said, "Well, Malia, what are you going to do when Auntie's gone? Are you going to start from the beginning as a haumana under another kumu?" He said, "You're never going to stop learning." He said, but if you complete your graduation, then you can study at a different level. And so his wisdom really remains with me to this day, even though he's no longer here. So discipline, yes, and a solid dad. Dad support and love.
Wow.
Too.
That is so incredible. It feels like your father had a foresight that
Yes.
he knew that this was part of your path, and he continued to encourage you towards it. That is so incredible.
Yeah, it's neat. I have a brother, and when he was born, my dad said, I didn't care if it was a boy or a girl. I just wanted a healthy baby. And he said, when I came, anything was happy, but secretly he was really hoping for a girl. To be born in the 1970s, where there was not only the women's liberation movement and social rights movements, but also the Hawaiian Renaissance, where Hawaiian cultural practices were coming back. Hokulea, the voyaging canoe, was sailing, and he just wanted a girl who could be raised up in that environment of progress and change. And he just somehow had the sense that his daughter would be able to appreciate the time and to be nurtured by movements that were so strong in the 70s. So I would say, yes, he definitely had some kind of foresight and a plan for me.
That is so incredible. Thank you for sharing that. I also appreciate your journey with Oli. I remember you had shared the story about how every time you would have to enter your classroom, your kumu would make you chant. Okay, if you share that part.
Yes, absolutely. It is very traditional to ask permission before we enter a space. We culturally never take for granted that we are allowed access to any particular given space, because there may be other practitioners, there may be other uses for a space. And so we have a practice of asking permission to enter. And it's formalized in many schools. Even Western education, my high school where I went to, our Hawaiian studies class, we would stand outside the classroom of our high school and chant permission to enter that class. And in hula, it's very common to chant outside the door. The teacher is inside, and when you have chanted to the kumu satisfaction, then the kumu will welcome you in. And I always did that as a group, chanting permission to enter, and then we were granted together. And when I started Oli with Kumu Lake, we all stood outside as a group, but we had to stand at the door individually, one by one, and chant to the kumu. And he would chant for us to enter, and then we would sit down, and those who were in the room would then chant for the next person who asked permission. We would chant them in. And over time, facing this fear, these nerves of, oh my gosh, Kumu's looking at me and it's only my voice, I think the repetition of that is truly what allowed me to just open my voice and to have trust that something's going to come out. And I think that's where the discipline really comes in, and the repetition and having that space to practice. So I am forever indebted because now I am able to chant. But there was a time where it literally felt like there was a hand covering my mouth, and that I couldn't.
Thank you so much for sharing your story of finding your voice and being able to overcome that. Mm-hmm. I really wanted everyone to hear this beautiful story, because when you shared that with me, I felt like it just gave me courage to chant and do Oli. And even though I am still learning, I just felt, oh, I am chanting to the nature. They just completely removed that self-consciousness. And I'm so grateful that you shared that story with me at that time.
Thank you. Thank you.
Mahalo. Such beautiful stories.
Thank you.
Thank you. What was one of the biggest leap of faith moments that you have made on your journey? And you could share that with us. We'd be so grateful.
I would say accepting the invitation to become a Kumu Hula. At the time, I was my Kumu's primary dancer. I was her right-hand person. I would help her in classes. I would dance when she needed a performer. And so the transition from being the lead dancer to a kumu is very different, because then as kumu, it's not my place on the stage. It would be my dancers dancing on my behalf. At 23 is actually when I was invited, maybe even when I was around 22, because my kumu was facing health challenges and she knew that her time was limited. And so she was planning one final graduation ceremony. And that's when she asked me to consider being a kumu. I really had to face a lot of deep insecurity over feeling that I wasn't ready or prepared, that I wasn't qualified, that I wasn't good enough. And it really took a major leap of faith to envision a future for myself where my kumu was no longer there. And she did pass very shortly after graduation. She also had foresight. And that was a very big leap of faith for me to accept when I was feeling very just young. And also moving forward, way forward in time, the invitation to join the Still and Moving Center community was a major leap of faith. I had been working in Waikiki doing Lomi for a decade. I had seniority there. And I met Renee, and she invited me to the center, which was under construction. So there were bales of construction equipment and materials in the parking lot. There were people hanging out the windows. There was no barefoot ballroom. There was no kwanyin. There was nothing in the kitchen, no washing machine, no refrigerator. It was just the bare construction zone. When she painted a picture of what she envisioned for Still and Moving Center, I went for it. I accepted her offer. And that leap of faith, now 16 years later, has unfolded into the most amazing life. So yes, becoming a kumu and becoming part of Still and Moving Center, I'd say were major pivotal moments in my life.
What do you feel made you make that second leap of faith with standing in that construction zone and then also speaking with Renee? What do you think helped you to make that leap of faith?
It's a good question. It's something I think about to this day, how to put into words that sense of deep inner knowing, right? I think we all have within us a sense of knowing that will either draw us towards something or we can sense being pushed away from something. And again, it's hard to articulate because everybody is going to come to that sense in their own way. But for example, there have been times where I wanted to visit a sacred area where I maybe even brought a lei or something. And when I got to the place, I just had a sense of this isn't the right time, or I'm not meant to be here. And I have done my best to listen to that. And with Still and Moving Center, there was this just inner knowing, this deep inner knowing that this was going to be the next step in the path. And I've been fortunate in my life to have had that sense many times, whether it was after graduating high school to go and dance hula in Japan when I was 18.
Wow.
When I came back to enroll in massage school when I was still 18 years old, when I was invited to apprentice under my first Lomi teacher, just this sense of knowing that the next step was going to be the right one. And that has led me here. And I encourage everybody in their own unique way, in your own unique way, to learn to sense that inner knowing that will guide us either towards or maybe not, or maybe just to wait. I think it's an innate human ability that we all have that can be muted by too much outward influences, but deep within, I think we all do have the sense.
Absolutely. So beautifully shared.
It's what I pray for, inner knowing.
Yes.
That the next step be the right one. And if not, that I can find meaning as I go back to the right next step. If I make a decision that leads to some kind of suffering in myself or in others, then I try not to beat myself up about it, but instead to take a step back and learn, okay, well, that was not successful. How might I do it again this way? Or if I felt in some way wronged or harmed, how might another person experience that? And of course, I don't want somebody to feel harmed. It's a calibrating tool. When I make a mistake, I find that it's just more information. That's how I try to look at it.
I feel that helps you move through the world with the grace that you do. I love that you shared about your inner guidance, and I feel that is going to help a lot of people to try to listen to that more. And we all do have an inner compass.
Yes.
Here in Hawaii, we are held by very powerful energies. If you could share a transformative moment that you had formed a deep connection with the Aina or the spirit of the ocean here.
There are so many moments like that. I'll share a story that I rarely tell. It's about how I found a deeper meaning of my name, Malia. Malia means Mary. I was named after my grandmother, Mary, and my mother's name is also Mary. So Malia is the Hawaiian way to say Mary. And when I was a teenager, maybe 18 or 19, I had gone to Kauai with a couple of friends and we hitchhiked to Kalalau. Well, we hitchhiked to the beach park at Ke'e, and then we hiked to Kalalau. We did the Nepali Coast Trail. And it was so hard. My friends were trail runners, and I felt like I was just slowing them down. There was one point where I literally sat down on the trail and I just cried because I felt like such a failure. And I found later that particular area is called Heartbreak Ridge for a reason. A lot of people experience that, evidently. And so I just broke down, and we ended up staying overnight on the way in at a place called Hanakoa, which is a Bay of Warriors. And I woke up the next morning just ready to go. And I was first on the trail. I was the first into Kalalau Valley, and it was such a transformative time. If you've been to Kalalau, there's the main valley and then a ridge that descends into the water. And if you are able to either kayak around, or we swam, we just swam around that ridge into the water, and we're able to land on Honolulu Beach. And we spent the day literally the only ones on this beach. Commercial kayaks and things are not actually legally allowed to land on that beach. And so there are a lot of people passing by, but we were the only ones on this beach. And it was so transformative. Even swimming back, the water is so deep. I had no idea what was swimming under me. But we came out and we hiked out. And I remember sitting on the beach at Ke'e Beach, just feeling different. And this local fisherman had come up and was just chatting, saying, "Oh, yeah, who are you? Where are you from? Where are you here?" And I said, "Oh, well, I'm from Oʻahu and my name is Malia." And he just looked at me and he said, "Hey, Malia, that's what we pray for, Malia Kai, which is calm ocean." And I felt like, oh, my drum was just struck and the reverberations went out. I was like, oh, my name means calm or peaceful. And from that time, I've added the kahako over the first A of my name to change it from Malia meaning Mary to Malia meaning calm and peace, like a calm ocean, very much like today. This is Malia Kai.
Malia Kai.
And the word he used, Malia, is a variation. More commonly, you hear Malie. Malie is calm. But in his Kauai way, he said Malia Kai. That's what we pray for. So that's just one moment I don't talk about often, but super transformative. The whole time was transformative. And I felt like being bequeathed this new understanding of my name was just such a potent marker in my life.
Wow.
Yeah, something to strive for.
There's always deeper layers. And that was such a beautiful gift from nature and from
that uncle.
From the uncle and from the ocean. Wow. Malia Kai.
Malia Kai.
Thank you for sharing that. It's so beautiful. I will remember.
And this truly is. It's such a calm day. Yes. So gorgeous. I'm glad you can join us.
Yes.
Forward in space and time. Thank you for joining us here at Kalama Beach.
Thank you so much. We would love to talk about hula, one of your great loves and the living tradition. What is hula to you? And how do you understand hula as a living practice?
So hula is movement. It's the movement of nature. There are several different legends and stories about where hula comes from. And each one is a little bit different on each island, really stems from nature. And on the Big Island, in the tradition of Pele, the first hula is ke ha'ala punai kamakanila. Ha is to dance, is to be humble and grounded. And it says puna, the land, is dancing in the wind. And so to me, hula is nature's movement. Here at Kailua Beach is a very natural place to sense that connection, because the waves coming in, we can sense that gradual unfolding of that wave's energy. We can see that sparkle on the sands. We can literally feel, we can palpate and sense that warmth of the sun, along with just the gentlest kiss of breeze. And so to me, this is all hula. And whether we are dancing with our hands or with Oli, so one practice that I like to do is imagining the waves sliding onto the shore and pulling back into the sea. And so we could actually practice that if you'd like. So we'll do two sounds, E and O. E-O. And so the hands slide forward on E and pull back on O. E-O, E-O, E-O. And if we just lay hands on our legs, can you already see how that would translate into Lomi? E-O, E-O. Press harder. E-soft. So we can vary both pressures and volume and speed, and we can find infinite ways to align with the elements around us. And while most of our hula that you see talk about the beauty of nature, the gentle winds, there are actually some hula about storms and crushing and breaking. And there are movements reflected all around from nature, including the really strong, harsh, stormy aspects of nature. So to me, that's hula. And the ability to share that through embodied movement is a lifelong practice. And probably one thing to add is also the lyrics, because hula is telling a story. And so typically we don't actually do movements without words. There's always some story that is being told. And so the language is just right entwined with emotion.
That is so beautiful. I felt that you showed how hula and Lomi Lomi are one, because this is Lomi Lomi.
Yes, my first Lomi teacher would often tell me, Malia, Lomi is a dance. Lomi is a dance. And so, of course, I dance hula. It just makes perfect sense to me. And in hula, I've been dancing since I was 8 years old. So I've been dancing for 40 years now. It has just informed me with a particular way of moving through space, right? That has strength, but it's graceful, right? That we don't have a certain way of moving that you might see in other dance forms. I feel like it's somewhere between a more modern dance and a rigid ballet dance. There is that middle space where there's form and structure, but there is grace. And so I feel like a lifetime of dancing hula translates directly into Lomi, where there is grace, there is flow, there is strength, but it's not too soft, it's not too hard, it's just right.
So beautiful. That middle path.
The middle way.
Wow. Interesting.
And the middle path, I think, does allow us to maybe take an easier path one day. Maybe we're going to scale the mountain the next day, but we can return to the middle and appreciate it all the more for the easy path and the treacherous path. We get to come back to the middle and just find our way forward. Yeah, at least that's what I try to do. Not too easy, not too hard, but just right.
I love that. It's a great life wisdom. During your training to become a Kumu Hula, what was that training experience like? And aside from learning and training the movements, was there spiritual and cultural elements?
Yeah, absolutely. When I think about what it was like, the main thing that comes to mind was the sense that my days were 24 hours long, especially in that final year of training. My days were 24 hours long, that there were times where we had a midnight ceremony. There were times where we had a sunrise ceremony. There were times where we were practicing late into the night. And there were times where we were waking up early to harvest plants that still had dew, morning dew upon them. And so just depending on the needs of the time, I just remember feeling like there was all time available to me, that I wasn't restricted to a 9 to 5 existence. It was a 24-hour existence. Probably the most important training was a very subtle training that I didn't appreciate until many, many years after my kumu passed. And it was that in her final years, she was just not as well. And so she would choreograph through me. So she would sit at her desk and she would drum on the desk. In fact, she would drum like this. And she would just use her desk and I would stand in the studio and she'd say, Malia, okay, how would you make a flower? And I'd say, okay, how like this? And she'd say, that's nice, Malia, but how about this? Try this one. And over time, she would just choreograph through me. And she didn't tell me, I'm teaching you how to choreograph. Wow. It was just naturally what happened. And it wasn't until, again, years and years and years after she passed that I was able to recognize how precious that was. Wow. That I got to be her body. Wow. And through that experience, I feel like that was the most precious lessons that I carry with me. Yeah. And so the training included all kinds of things like that. But the final graduation was a couple of different parts. We have a little dog. There he goes. Bye, friend. There are two main graduations. One was a private ceremony on the island of Hawaii. And then the second one was a public ceremony that was held just down this shoreline, way down at a place called He'eia. And that was more of a party, like a luau with food and entertainment and dancing. And preparing for those two things in 2002 was pretty all-consuming. And I was young. I didn't have children at the time. Actually, I had a Hanai daughter at the time, but I had a lot more freedom to live a 24-hour life than I do now. Yeah, that kind of was my job, was to study and become a kumu. A really precious window of time.
Sometimes different stories will feel this is the right time to share this part of that story. I appreciate how you shared how kind of your understanding of time expanded.
Yes.
And almost a sense of detachment from being time bound. And to just understanding the harmony of nature. Mahalo.
Thank you.
So beautiful. In Hawaii tradition, what is the role of Oli and Pule?
Yeah, absolutely. I would start with the distinction between Pule and Oli. So Pule is a prayer, and some prayers are chanted. So I see Oli as a chanted prayer. And when we speak words, it's very powerful. The Hawaiian language was a completely oral history and language until the 1800s. And so we are one of the newer cultures to be translated from words to page. And that was a very powerful thing that happened at a very pivotal time in the 1800s. Because of that, we see that the language has such power. It's a living thing. And so we speak prayers, and that is incredibly powerful. When we chant them, we're lifting our volume and we're raising that vibration and resonance. And I see that as just lifting the prayer a little higher. And I know that my mom, in her Catholic faith, they believe that when you sing, you pray twice because you're saying the words, but you're singing. So that's like you're praying twice. And so I think that's probably a universal understanding that taking a prayer from the mind to spoken to chanted, it just extends maybe the reach of that prayer a little further.
When we do Oli, do you feel that when we're extending that energy, is it extending it to nature or the universe?
I think that's very subjective. I think it'll be different for everybody. Going back to our example of the E and the O sounds, we can even change the volume. And so I chant over my Lomi Lomi recipients, and sometimes I'll chant very loudly, but that's rare. Usually I will drop down to my knees, bow my head, and very gently chant over them to use my sound to just wash over. And so the reach, I think, is not necessarily just in the volume. Hear me over there. Sometimes it is, but sometimes that reach is more about intention and quality. And so I can take a very soft chant and extend that to reach pretty far. Maybe for me, that is always returning to nature, which is eternal. Maybe that is reaching even further out to a dim understanding of the divine. My human understanding of God is still a work in progress. And so maybe those prayers and chants will reach that far out beyond the known parameters of the universe. I think it's very subjective where our prayers go and how far they reach. But I think intention is really the key. I can intend to just cover this cup in prayer. Gratitude for the most excellent chai. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Or if I wanted to, I could try to chant to those people down the beach. It just depends on the intention, the reason for the prayer, and how far we want to send it.
Intention is at the center. It's so important. Thank you for sharing that. How did your relationship with your own voice deepen through your training with your kumu?
I remember her taking me to here to Kailua Beach, is further down that way, more towards the pavilion. She would stand far from me on the beach and she'd say, "Throw your voice to me." And then she kept walking backwards, and in the wind and the crashing waves, she's like, "Come on, throw your voice to me." And so I did learn how to send my voice further. And I can only imagine that was transformative. When I was working in Japan, I was dancing with a small group of 5. There were 2 of us who were female dancers, 1 kane, 1 male dancer, and 2 musicians. And one of the musicians just didn't like me. I could just tell. I just irritated him very, very deeply, to the point where, and I'm still 18 years old, he yelled at me, "F you effing blah, 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 blah," just yelling to my face. And that shut my voice down for a very long time. So from 18 to when I became a kumu at 24, I was doing chanting lessons at 22, 23. And so that was about 5 years of this experience. And it wasn't, many people experience worse on a daily basis, but that was the first time that was directed right at my face, right at my being. And it just took a lot to heal from that, to be able to stand up for myself. And now, if somebody would speak to me like that, I would be able to say, "I'm not going to tolerate this. That's not acceptable. You need to leave," or "I'm leaving." I have the ability to say that now, whereas I didn't before. And so I would say that that the training and the consistent use of voice helped to heal some really hurting parts of me that I'm forever grateful for.
Thank you for sharing that journey. That story also shows how important it is we speak with grace and how important our words are. It is very important that we speak with grace as much as possible and love into this world. I'm sure that experience gave you a lot of compassion to also help be that voice for other people and create this beautiful, loving space for people to to connect with their voice.
Absolutely. It's easy to see how words are like seeds. We have a word and we plant it, and that's going to grow. A negative thing is a seed that is planted that can grow. And words of love and support and compassion, those are also seeds that can grow. And I say that we have so many choices in what we say and how we say it, that there's just so much, we hold so much power. So let's use our powers for good.
It's powerful and it can be harmonious.
Yes.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Mahalo nui. You often share that Lomi was your first love, and you also share that hula and Lomi are deeply interconnected. How do you experience them as one practice?
So my first Lomi teacher taught me my first Lomi lesson when I was 16 years old, and I'm going to show you. It means give me your hand. And so she took my hand and she grasped my metacarpals, which is this long bone, looks like a finger bone in your palm. She grasped my wrist, and then she started rotating the bones in the joints, using my own bones as a massage tool that we could work deeply in the wrist joint without pressing in with our fingers. And so this initial lesson of just moving the bones through the joints opened up a whole world of understanding for me that is the foundation for my belief and understanding that hula is a healing practice. Because as we dance, we are moving the bones in the joints. So this manual therapy that I'm doing here to your hand, now we can shake out and draw the fingers in. We are accomplishing the same thing through dance. And so if we think of our elbow or our shoulders, as we take our hands through a range of motion, that rotation of the bone in the joint is providing a very gentle, very passive Lomi. And the same teacher would tell me, Lomi is a dance. And so as I step around the table, as I transition from one movement to the next, it is like a dance that is not choreographed in a way that a hula is, but it still has that flow, it has that intention, it has that presence of mind, presence of heart to ground it. So to me, that's how they are the same.
Wow.
Yeah. So I look at hula as a healing art, and I look at Lomi as an expressive art.
That is so beautiful. And I can completely see how they are one. And it's the intention, the presence, and the dance. That was beautiful. Thank you.
And like the waves are doing the same thing right behind us.
Yes, like how you mentioned.
And in a slower way, the clouds are also doing that.
Malia Kai.
Yep, Malia Kai.
Wonderful. You trained under Auntie Karen Lei for Lomi. What was one of the most teachable moments with her?
The one thing is more of a life philosophy. I remember, so I started with her. She taught me that when I was 16. And she told me at the time, she said, when you're ready, go to massage school, finish that, and then I'll apprentice you, which I did. So I went to massage school at 18, graduated at 19, and I apprenticed with Karen Lei and got licensed at age 20. And so along the way, we had lots and lots of time together, many stories to unfold there. But the one that remains with me is a day that I was upset and crying. I don't remember what I was crying about, but she just looked at me and she said, honey, it's not pain, it's perspective. And I've never forgotten that. Just, honey, it's not pain, it's perspective. And she said, for whatever reason, I don't understand, she said, but for whatever reason, teachers and healers are called upon to suffer more than most. And maybe that is to build our compassion, to build our capacity to have an understanding of the suffering of others. And so, yeah, I was just a teenager. Honey, it's not pain, it's perspective. And that has allowed me to view any time, even my times of greatest heartbreak, I've never come out of a time of heartbreak and not been better for it.
What an amazing guidance to receive at such a young age.
Oh, and then beyond that, she was really eccentric as a teacher. I remember the first day I showed up for class, we stood at the massage table and she said, okay, we're not going to Lomi for a long time. So just don't even think we're going to do any Lomi. She taught me how to stand and then how to breathe and then how to lean. And it was only later that she taught me how to Lomi. She started way back with the standing, the breathing, the leaning, and then only after that did we Lomi. And I'm forever grateful to that because it taught me presence and it taught me palpation, the ability to sense.
So beautiful. Wow. You are going to open your own Lomi apprentice program where you are going to train other apprentices. Can you share a little bit about that and what inspired this calling and what are you hoping to cultivate and transmit to your apprentices?
Oh, that's such a big question. Such a big question. So I have been called to open my own Lomi school. And what I'm seeking is apprentices who want to learn my style of Lomi. And I feel like all of my life has built up to this point where in this year, I've been a Kumu for half my life. I've done massage for 30 years and I've danced hula for 40 years. And so just this one particular alignment of time has brought me to a place where not only am I really seeking to formalize how entwined the practices are, but do so in a way that I can pass it on. I don't currently have an apprentice. I have a few students that I can name who I feel I would refer people to that are closest to my style, but I don't have anybody that I've been able to nurture and train. And it just felt like this is the time. And it'll open just after Chinese New Year next year. So Chinese New Year is always on a dark moon. And the first sliver moon, the first night after the dark moon is called Hilo. Po Hilo is the navigator moon. And so that's when I will open, is the night after Chinese New Year. And it will be a new era, a new time of growth. It is a leap of faith because I was taught in a different way. I went to a Western massage school and then I was apprenticed in Lomi, whereas I am seeking to develop a school, a massage school that would allow my students to sit for the licensing exam if they choose. And so it will be a blend of both Western, Latin, like anatomy, physiology, and kinesiology, paired with Hawaiian traditions. My goal is to cultivate Hawaiian practitioners or practitioners of Hawaiian practices, such as chanting, prayer, Lomi, gathering, weaving, all the things that I have experienced in my life. In my way, that's what I seek to share. And I can't share from all traditions. And so I am choosing to share from what are my practices. So that is Lomi, that is held and nurtured by my hula practice.
That is so beautiful.
It's pretty grand.
And I can tell it is a grand vision. And I just know you're going to be wrapped with so much love and support and momentum. And you said that you're going to start the day after Chinese New Year. I believe that's also when you started your halal. Right?
Very near. So I opened my halal on February 1st, and then my Lomi school will open on February 7th. So very nice detail.
Do you tend to align these big visions and hopes with the celestial powers?
So there are three, I would say, main things that we look at. A very obvious one is the sun, right? The sun that has a solar year, 365 days. There are also the movements of the stars that are pretty eternal. One star one constellation that is really significant to us is what most people know as Orion's Belt. In Hawaiian, we call that Heihe Ona Keiki. And so one of the stars in the belt rises and due east, just about due east. And so that is a measure of east that we have access to at certain parts of the year. The sun rises at a slightly different point along the horizon, which is how we can also tell the times, the seasons. Right here, about almost middle of the bay, is the equinox. And then at the solstices, it's about 3 shakas on the horizon where the sun travels. And so that is one way that we mark time. And I mark that here at Kailua Beach. So we do a sunrise ceremony on the Saturday closest to every equinox and solstice since 2003. And so we have done dozens and dozens, maybe even 100 ceremonies here at Kailua Beach.
Oh, wow.
And that allows us to mark time because everyone is different, right? Today is a very calm day. There are some days where the waves are overhead, but it just depends on the conditions. And then the moon is what's closest to us. And so there is a gravitational pull from the moon that gives us our high and low tides. It's a measurable magnetic gravitational pull. And so there are names and purposes for every night of the lunar cycle, which is 29 and a half days when put into context with the lunar or the solar cycle. And so we have lots of opportunities to sync, whether it is the stars or the sun or the moon, that allow us to find some kind of alignment. And I think that we've all probably experienced times in our lives where things fell into place, where we can sense that there is an alignment that happens. And I think we can all sense when things just aren't working. And so as we're able to consciously, with intention, find alignments in the stars and the sun and the moon, then that just gives us a better chance in our mortal existence to find that similar sense of alignment, which is why Hawaiian temples are placed specifically where they are and often have markers that can track the movement of the sun on the horizon and the rising and the setting of stars. It's a means of alignment that we can bring ourselves into alignment with and maybe find some sense of flow, of rightness, of balance. And so I do seek whenever I can to align with the moon and the sun and the stars.
I think that is very beautiful. In Qigong philosophy, we also believe that when you align with the rhythm of the nature and the seasons, then it can give you more momentum as well and more grounding.
So if we look between the mokulua, the sky is cleared and we can see it looks like a low, dark cloud, but that's an island. So I'm not sure if that's Maui or Molokai. But if we imagine a map of the Hawaiian island chain, now we've just oriented ourselves to the south, southeast. And then Kauai to the north is going to be in the other direction. And so here on Oʻahu, we can sense that alignment within the island chain. And if we go from Big Island, Maui, Oʻahu, Kauai is pointing towards Japan.
It's almost like we're a constellation.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Southeast Asia, pointing across the Pacific. And so it's just, I think, a very powerful thing how we can align ourselves and orient ourselves. I think that's at the root of many prayers. And so one of my favorites, it prays from Luna above to Lalo below, from inside Loko to outside Baho, from Kahikihi one corner, Kahikihi to the other corner, Mai Kauka from the mountains, Akekai to the sea, Mai Kohoʻokui, the zenith, to the horizon, Halavai, from the kumu, the base of the tree, Akavelau to the leaf tips. There's all of these pairs of opposites that just allow us to find our center, which that middle path, right? We have means of aligning through both our lived experience and then maybe the support of the celestial bodies.
Wow. That is so beautiful. I love how you said we always have these different 2 points, and that allows us to navigate and find the center.
And it's reflected in anatomy. So anatomical locating terms, there's superior, inferior. There's anterior, posterior. There's proximal and distal. Often these are pairs that allow us to find specificity. Like pain, is it sharp or is it dull? Is it a 1 or is it a 10? We have these means of calibrating. And in Hawaii, we calibrate to nature and to each other. And to the teachings of our elders and our dreams for the future. Yeah, we have many means of aligning. It can get overwhelming.
I think it's so beautiful, and it is something that we definitely cherish and really appreciate. Thank you for guiding so many of us and also sharing this tradition and these wisdoms forward.
Thank you. Thank you so much for allowing me to share. And as we're looking at all of these, we can almost see them as lines of alignment. We consider the root of all illness in Hawaiian thinking entanglement. So whether if it's scar tissue that is entangling the tissue, whether it's betrayal in a relationship that has entangled relationship lines, when we see how many ways we have to align, I think it becomes apparent how easily our lives can become entangled. And my belief is that if we have these wider than us means of alignment beyond the interpersonal selfhood, when we can align wider to the balance of the sun and the moon, the stars, the wind, and time, then it gives us that wider perspective that can pull us maybe back into alignment. And it's also a way of recognizing, oh, I've got really entangled. We have means of finding our way again. And I think that's probably one of the things I'm most grateful to Hula and Lomi for, is this ability to not have to rely on myself. That there are these external means that I can use as support to find my way.
You are not alone. You are supported by all of these. And it's like that saying that we stand on the shoulders of giants, and it's all around us. The nature is all around us.
It is. And I think this brings a really important point. Speaking of my Kumu Hula, Auntie Puluʻelo, I remember from when I was little hearing her pray, and she would ask God, please allow me to be a clean and clear vessel. Allow me to be an instrument of your will. Allow me to be an instrument of peace. And I think that's a really important aspect of my culture that I appreciate, is that it's not just me doing the massage. It's not just me teaching or doing the dance. It is myself as a clean and clear vessel that can allow support from these alignments. It can allow support from our ancestors. And not just my ancestors, but how about this person that is before me on the table? Their ancestors are present. And so you mentioned standing on the shoulders of giants. Did you know that's how we envision our ancestors, is standing on our shoulders all the way up? And so when we dance hula, we bend our knees. We are grounded by our ancestors. And so I imagine there's all of yours and there's all of mine, and they're all shaking hands all the way up. Nice to meet you. Nice to meet you. How are we going to help Jade and Malia today?
Nice to
And
meet
Deshane. And if I thought I had all the answers, then I wouldn't be open to that guidance. But if I have a perspective of humility and respect that, no, I don't know all the answers, that I am actively seeking guidance and support, then as a clean and clear vessel, their presence can come through. And I think that along with that sensation of alignment and balance, I've had some very pivotal times where I was so supported that my hands were doing things that I had never been taught. And I think that's available to all of us.
That is so beautiful. Well, thank you so much, Kumu Malia. Mahalo nui loa.
Thank you.
We are just so grateful and blessed to hear your amazing stories, your wisdom that has been passed by all of these different ancestors and nature through you. Thank you for allowing us to listen, to hear, to be present, and to hopefully embody such grace and beauty and wisdom as well. We are so grateful. And if we could have the great honor of dancing hula with you, we would love that.
Absolutely. All right, so palms down. So since we're here at the ocean, I wanted to share a hula about the great voice of the sea. And so we're going to start with palms down. And as if we are smoothing the sand right below us. In fact, we can place hands on. And sensing the lift and dip of the sand and then lift up. So Kalapana describes a place. Now, tap your fingertips. The fingertips are going to lead up and over, up and over. And if we just continue looking out towards the sea, it's a very gentle lift and drop of the fingertips. So this is the ocean. Palms down. O Kalapana. There's the ocean. Reaching the hands out. We're going to pull your left hand to your mouth, showing Leo. Leo.
Leo.
That's voice. And Leo Nui is the great voice of the sea. Okay, so again, palms down. O Kalapana. Kailua Nui. Now this voice is heard. So we're going to take those hands or fingers right behind the ear. We're going to sweep this long right arm. A voice that is heard. Both hands are going to sweep up to the mountains. Ka'uka to the mountains of Hole. Oh, Hole. We return our hand to the sea. So again, Kalapana is a place where the ocean has a voice that is vast and loud and so great that the voice is heard. Behind the ear, good. The voice is heard up in the mountains of Hole. Now let this right arm keep going. The left hand goes to the mouth and say the word hua.
Hua.
Hua is roaring, resounding, like the crashing of waves. He ua la kalapana. So that's the great voice. Make a triangle, press that forward to show the voice of the sea extending across the land. And notice the pinkies in. Good. And back again. Now my favorite part of this entire song, we're going to have palms down, roll, roll, palms up. And so this is the waves. Kuli vale, palms open. Now check this long right arm is going to cleanse, cleanse, cleanse. And so again, that voice of the sea, the power of the ocean, it hushes me. It deafens me. And I see this as being hushed in awe. I am cleansed by the power of the sea. Kaleo is the voice. Kaleo. Our right arm is long for the ending. We're going to sweep. Heleo. The voice of the sea. No ke kai. We begin at Kalapana. O Kalapana. There's the ocean. Kailua Nui. Tuck that hand behind the ear. Walorno, the mountains. Ka'uka of Hole. Oh, Hole. He ua la kalapana. Let's touch hands. And kulivale, cleanse. Kulivale I kaleo. Cleansed by the voice. Sweep the right. Heleo. no ke kai. Beautiful. So let's do one more time. And this time, I'm not going to do any of the cueing. We're just going to flow. And so whether you're joining at home or right now in the space, just being present to the gentlest kiss of the breeze, a very gentle wave crashing sound of the ocean, people passing by on their morning walk and run. And we are here present in gratitude, just flowing together with one another and with nature and with time and across time to all of you joining whatever it is that you are joining us in the future. So we'll take a breath in, hanu mai, hanu aku, pa. O kalapana, kailua nui, walono ka uka ohole. He ua la kalapana, Kulivale, kulivale, I kaleo. Heleo, no ke kai. Hey, heleo, no ke kai. Inhale. Exhale. Mahalo. And mahalo.
Wonderful. Thank you. So many beautiful stories that I will for sure contemplate on and encourage all of you to listen, learn, and be filled as a vessel as well. Mahalo nui.
Mahalo nui. Thank
Mahalo
you.
nui loa.
Thank you.